Chapter 21, Part 2. All right, so what were the problems that we had when the boys came home from the war? First and foremost, Spanish flu. Those boys had been infected over in Europe with this devastating crisis that is called Spanish flu. And this was so bad that within a short few months when they came home, over 500,000 people are dead, and we find that we are behind the curve medically. We don't have enough bed space, our doctors are overwhelmed, and it is just something we don't know how to fight. So this is the first pandemic that kind of give us an understanding of where pandemic goes when COVID hit in 2020. And additionally, we also had these young men who had gone to war as boys, came home as men, and did not want to move back home with mom. Of course not. So we had a housing shortage. We had an economic problem because all of those government contracts that had been signed and created to generate war efforts all had to be canceled now. So we had a job market problem, housing shortage, the sickness, and our economy is in free fall. So we're going to see that next presidential election come up, and a lot of factors are going to play into kind of changing the dynamics. One is women who were called to work during World War I, and they stepped up and did really great. You know, Rosie the Riveter image, all of that was very, very well orchestrated, and the ladies did a fantastic job. But in return, they expected some things, and one is they expected to be treated fairly when it came to politics. So the 19th Amendment is passed in 1920 and gave women the right to vote. And then we're going to see the progressives are going to be able to finally get some of their objectives met. One is prohibition. Prohibition came as a result of a lot of the church groups and to be kind of candid, business owners who were supporting prohibition because, you know, hey, if you're laid up drunk and you're not coming to work, you're not making me any money. So those groups kind of worked together to push through prohibition. Now, we do know that prohibition is called a failed experiment because it actually kind of did. It was passed under the 18th Amendment, will be repealed under the 21st. We corrected a mistake. And also 1920, the Senate is supposed to ratify the Treaty of Versailles, which basically ended World War I. That's where the rules were written by the winning team. Well, our Senate didn't see the same as our president had, because President Wilson had gone to the Treaty of Versailles meeting with his package of what he called the 14-point peace plan. Now, there's a couple things that are very important. Freedom of the seas, open trade, reduction of arms for Germany. But a couple of other things for Germany was that Germany not only had to disarm, they had to take full ownership of the war. They were going to be charged this huge amount of money that the Germans were going to have to pay for. You know, you break it, you pay for it kind of thing. So the German people themselves are going to be without any kind of German assistance, German services, no support for a very long time, because the government of Germany after the war is going to save every penny and pay down their war debt. Monstrous amount of money. And ultimately will lead to World War II because those charges on Germany were so harsh. It's not something that a government can support. They were those charges that were placed on Germany were so heavy And the German people, it led to a lot of resentment. It led to a lot of anger, hurt feelings. And so we had a period of 10 to 15 years now that these people in Germany are going to be under this huge burden, and they're going to be ripe for when someone comes along like Adolf Hitler and says, hey, I want to help make Germany great again. And you know what? He's going to do it, but it's at the death and the destruction of 6 to 7 million Jewish people in the world. But here in this country, because President Wilson had one other little gem in his 14-point plan, and that was to create what he called the League of Nations, a place in which, instead of going to bullets and to confrontation, countries that had problems could meet and hash their differences out conversationally, face to face. A League of Nations. It's still alive and well today. It's called the United Nations. But our government, our Senate, saw it as a way in which we would have to commit to being friends and a group, to joining a group of allies that, and in their way of thinking, was one of the reasons that this whole thing started. And again, we kind of circled back to our isolationist thing and said, we really don't want to care about what's going on over there. So by the Senate, they are the group of body that has the authority to approve or deny a treaty. Well, guess what? 1920, they rejected the Treaty of Versailles, saying we are not going to join. And unfortunately, down the road, we do join it. And it is now we're part of what's known as Security Council, one of 5 countries that have a permanent place on the United Nations Security Council, and they make world decisions. And that ends chapter 21. See you soon.